All right, so welcome to part two um, of the Inquiry Research Project outline video. So we kind of did earlier, kind of did an overview update to remind you that it's not due this Friday, it's next week, and kind of give you an update on where we are in the class, and then the part one video of what I'm going to call for the Inquiry Research Project outline. We started with the introduction and thinking about how these subletters A, B, C, and D are individual paragraphs. Okay. We were kind of, I think, right in the middle of the body paragraphs and thinking about the research process itself, how those come together, right? Just literally answer each one of these. So we said, how did you find your resources? Now we're going to kind of do that narrative thing. It's a little bit, and now we're going to kind of really expand it a little bit. And we think about our interdisciplinary bibliography, right? And research log, right? We identified the sources, right? We identified disciplines and we identified databases and different things like that, kind of more in like a listy type way, right? Or in a list. Now we're going to kind of like tell a story a little bit about it. So what was your research process? How did you find your sources? What specific databases did you use? And this is where you'll kind of guide me through. Did you go to Shipman Library? Then you can even tell me what you clicked on. What search terms did you use? And then you can tell me about if it was difficult or not. What problems did you encounter while looking for these sources, and how did you solve them? I was messing around with these two search terms. That wasn't working. So how I solved that problem to find my peer-reviewed sources, I typed in these two terms together, and then I found what I was looking for, right? And then I started to get the results, right? So the problem you solved was you weren't getting the results, right? You weren't finding the peer-reviewed sources that you wanted. But then by changing up your key terms, right, or your phrases, or how you were phrasing them, or particular terms you were using at the time, then you started to find. So how did you, if you encountered a different problem, what did you do, right? See, based on your research, what disciplines have studied this topic the most, and why do you think this is, right? So we had to do this interdisciplinary thing, right? We had the majority of our sources, maybe 6, 7, 8, or 9 of them may have been in the actual field, right, about the topic, but we had to find some ones that were in a different field. What was that field? What were they talking? What was the discussion about? How were they kind of looking at the topic maybe a little differently than the ones that were actually in the discipline? And then why do you think this is, within that difference, or maybe there are some similarities? Was there a different approach that you found interesting? So share that with us. And then finally, in your last paragraph under research process, you would then talk about your, what would you have done differently? Okay. If anything, that is okay. And then your next subheading is going to be your research findings, right? So this will be the longest section and the meatiest section, as we might say. So this is where I talked about last week, where we would have now our subheadings that we're going to talk about are going to be so you'll have research findings, and then you're going to have another subheading underneath there, and that might be, so if we're using COVID as our example again, which we've been using kind of in class, that and pizza, we might see, depending on how we're talking about COVID, it might be, the use of masks, practicing social distancing, practicing, hand washing, or I think we use the word sanitizing, right? Practicing, sanitizing. It could be through hand washing. It could be through the use of antibacterial, hand sanitizers, etc. Gloves, might be a fourth, subheading, depending on how your topic is divided in that way. And this is where you want to try to think about finding at least 3 research studies. That's why you've got good 3 or 4 peer-reviewed sources, and they did a study. It could have been that they interviewed people, they tested people, they surveyed people, and they got results, right? So they have these individual studies. A study could also be where we talked about this, where someone kind of more did along the lines of what we call a discourse analysis or a discourse study. They maybe didn't go and survey people or observe people or interview people directly, but they looked at other people's research, right? So they looked at other scholarly articles and they said, okay, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that, so-and-so said this and that, and then they combine them together, and then they come up with what their results were, okay? So that's how we put that together. And then you have your final 3 sections here where you talk about your future research. What future research do you think still needs to be done? Then you can review and reflect, and this is kind of where you conclude, and then you have a final section where you get to kind of put your final thoughts in there. All right, guys, I'll leave you with that for now. And please let me know if you have any questions. I will be back with some more videos hopefully later in the week. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.